What the ground wants. Marcus Holt was a desk man. Spreadsheets, quarterly reports, a standing coffee order from the same cafe every morning for 11 years. The closest he'd come to manual labor was assembling flat-pack furniture, and even that had ended badly. So when a lawyer called to tell him he'd inherited a farm in the Karoo from an uncle, nobody in the family talked about a man who had retreated alone into the Northern Cape decades ago and never come back. Marcus did what any reasonable city man would do. He drove out there with his wife to have a look. 1 week, they agreed. Assess the property. Decide whether to fix it up or sell it. Maybe, and this part was unspoken between them, the way the most important things in a struggling marriage always are, maybe, remember what it felt like to actually be in the same place together. They should have sold it from the driveway. They should have turned around and never looked back. Before we get into this one, if you're new here, welcome to Untold Disturbing Stories. Every week we bring you stories like this one, unsettling, unresolved, and impossible to forget. Hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you never miss one. And if you're watching this on TikTok or Instagram, the full versions of every story live on our YouTube channel. Link is in the bio. Now let's get back to Marcus. The property was 5 kilometers from the nearest neighbor and 4 hours from anything Marcus would describe as civilization. The farmhouse was low and sun-bleached and surrounded by flat, cracked earth that stretched to a horizon so distant it felt like a threat. There were sheep in the eastern field and a dog that watched them arrive without moving or making a sound. Inside, functional, dusty, the belongings of a man who had lived entirely alone for 15 years, still exactly where he'd left them. Marcus's uncle Garrett had died here quietly, and the house had simply continued around his absence. Marcus had met Garrett exactly once. He'd been 12 years old. A family gathering. His father had tried to leave early. Garrett had sat apart from everyone, not eating, not drinking, just watching. And when young Marcus had wandered over, Garrett had looked at him for a long time and said, "You have the same hands as me." Marcus had never understood what that meant. By the end of the first week, he would. The tiredness started on day 2. Not normal tiredness. Not the kind that comes from fresh air and unfamiliar beds. A heaviness that Marcus couldn't shake. That sat behind his eyes from the moment he woke. That made him quiet and slow and absent in a way that Claire recognized with a sinking feeling as something other than exhaustion. He stopped sleeping in the bed on day 3. She'd wake at 2 a.m. and find his side empty, and he'd be back by morning sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, dirt under his fingernails that he couldn't explain. He didn't remember getting up. He didn't remember going outside. He didn't remember the dirt. On day 4, Claire noticed the animals. Every night, at exactly the same time, just after midnight, every sheep in the eastern field turned simultaneously to face the same direction, not toward the farmhouse, toward the far western corner of the property, and they stood there, motionless and silent, for hours. The dog sat with them, facing the same way. She told Marcus. He said it was probably nothing. Animals had strange rhythms. It was the Karoo. Everything out here was strange. That night she didn't sleep. On day 5, she followed him. She'd been watching from the bedroom window when he got up at 1 a.m., dressed without turning on a light, and walked out the back door with the slow, deliberate movement of a man who knew exactly where he was going. She grabbed her phone and followed, at a distance. He walked to the far western corner of the property, where the animals looked. And in the dark, with a spade she hadn't known he'd taken from the shed, he began to dig. Not randomly, not frantically, with a rhythmic, methodical precision that looked nothing like a confused sleepwalker. It looked practiced. It looked like a man doing work. He understood, completely. She filmed it, hands shaking, then went back to the farmhouse. In the morning, she showed him. He watched the footage twice. His face did something she'd never seen it do before. Not fear exactly, but the specific look of a person watching themselves do something they have no memory of and no explanation for. He said they should leave. She agreed. They started packing, and that's when she found the journal. We'll finish this in just a moment. While we're here, if this story is getting under your skin, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love this kind of story. And if you're watching on TikTok or Instagram, the full uncut version of every story we tell is on our YouTube channel. Link is in the bio. Don't miss it. Now, back to the journal. It was in the bottom drawer of the old desk in the study. Thick. Years of entries, the handwriting starting neat and precise, and becoming, over time, increasingly erratic. Letters losing their shape, words running together, sentences that started coherently and dissolved into strings of symbols she couldn't identify. But the early entries were clear enough. Garrett had felt it too. The tiredness, the missing hours, the dirt. He'd written about the animals, the same field, the same direction, the same time of night. He'd written about digging holes he didn't remember digging, in the same western corner, night after night for years. He'd written about what he believed was down there. Something old, something that had been in that ground longer than the farm, longer than any structure on the property, longer than any human record of this part of the Karoo. Something that wasn't dead, exactly. Just held, compressed, waiting with the particular patience of a thing that understands that time works differently underground. It needed to be found, Jared had written. It needed hands, and it always found the right hands eventually. You have the same hands as me. Claire dropped the journal. She went to find Marcus. He wasn't in the house. She found him in the western field, in broad daylight, digging, not looking up, not responding to his name, just working steady and rhythmic, the spade going into the earth and coming up again, in a tempo that had nothing to do with urgency and everything to do with inevitability. She got in the car. She drove away. She didn't look in the rearview mirror once. That was 20 years ago. Marcus never left the farm. People from the nearest town occasionally reported seeing a man in the western field digging, always digging, but nobody went out to check. The Karoo has always had its own rules about what counts as someone else's business. Marcus died 3 months ago. Claire drove out to settle the estate. She hadn't been back since the day she left. She signed the papers, walked the property with the lawyer, tried not to look at the western field. 20 years of holes, hundreds of them, thousands. The entire corner of the property excavated methodically over 2 decades of nights. And in the center, one patch of ground, undisturbed. Whatever was down there, Garrett hadn't reached it. Marcus hadn't reached it. But Marcus had gotten close. She could see that from where she stood, close enough that she could almost feel the shape of what remained. The lawyer asked if she was ready to go. She didn't answer. 6 weeks later, Claire sold the farm to herself. She moved in the following Monday. The estate agent thought it was strange that she asked specifically about purchasing a set of spades on the way through town. 3 of them, good ones. She said she had a lot of work to do. Some things don't let go of a family. They just wait for the right hands. If this one got under your skin, hit the like button. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think is buried out there. I read every single one. Subscribe to Untold Disturbing Stories if you haven't already. New stories every week, the kind that follow you home and keep you up at night. If you're watching this on TikTok or Instagram, every full story lives on our YouTube channel. Longer, darker, no cuts. Link is in the bio. Go watch it there. Sleep well, and maybe don't inherit any farms.